What's up, otakus? It's your tour guide here. Um, yeah, it's midweek. I just kind of jump on when I get the inspiration, and I sort of have time in the evenings, and I kind of just you know, there's been a lot of trailers that have been released in the past couple of days that has the community buzzing. You know, all of these, I think, features are coming out this summer, so it's going to be a very active summer. It looks like. Kind of feels like I know, production schedules and things have been kind of affected by the pandemic. It really feels like this summer they're kind of going all out. The movie industry is kind of going all out to try and get people back into theaters and generate the kind of sales. I know last summer Top Gun did really well, um, which I just recently saw. I thought Top Gun I thought it was okay. It was definitely entertaining because I enjoyed the first movie. I was in I was in like seventh grade when that came out, um, and definitely this movie I think was a good sequel to it, and so yeah, it was great. It just was it was really like hyped. So I went into it with I just kind of had went into it with high expectations, and I gotta say, I wasn't disappointed. It was a good movie, but it was uh, it was kind of predictable in places. So, um, but anyway, it's a happy ending. It's kind of like a nice, flying off into the sunset moment for that character, and it was good. So anyway, we're focusing on all the DC Marvel sort of announcements, and I got to be honest. This whole speculation, because so when I was collecting comic books, um, it had no ties whatsoever to movies, television shows. It just had no ties to that. Um, what you had was you had something like Wizard, which came out, um, and you just kind of had just people were collecting what they liked. Like I distinctly remember like having all these options before me. Like Captain America, Thor. It's not like you can really realistically get all the Marvel titles or all the. I mean, I guess you could. I just didn't. I didn't live in that kind of household where I could just. I had like allowance money and all this. You know, um, I did have allowance money, but I didn't have enough to get like everything I wanted to collect. Right. So it forced me to be selective. Now maybe there were kids who got to collect everything they wanted. Hey Kenneth, what's up? How you doing, buddy? So we're talking like all the trailers, right? I'm sure you caught all the trailers this week, and I don't know how if there's a specific movie or if you're excited about all of them, or if there's some that you're just not terribly, you know, following or care about. But um, for the most part, I think a lot of what's been announced has been really positive. So we're gonna get again. This video is about covering sort of the spec books in my collection, and it's these aren't intentional spec books. Like I didn't go out with um, with the intention of speculating, but you're digging. You have sort of this background knowledge of stuff they're working on, or things that are coming out, and you just have it in the back of your head. And as you're digging, you find something, and hey, what's up, K-pop. You have it in the back of your head, and you decide, okay, I'll get it, right? Like for $1, there's some spec value here, this might go up, and you just kind of do this um, internal math in your head. Now, I don't think it's a great way to collect, but at the same time, I think part of what we do is we see potential value there, and if we can trade up, and I've been doing a lot of trades and selling books here and there, so I definitely am. I feel like I with this sort of process, I've been able to pick up some of the Jim Lee books that I want through trades. Um, I've been able to sell books, pick up more books, and whatever money I amass, I'm trying to do more of, okay, if we have like financial monies, rather than spending that on like a few books, like smaller books, being patient, collecting money, saving up money, and making bigger purchases. So I've been trying to do more of that. So everything I'm showing off here today will be available for sale or trade. And again, I am not that picky. You give me a Jim Lee book for any of these things, I'll probably give you a lot of extra value, especially if it's a Jim Lee book I don't have. So um, I, I don't mind having multiples of Jim. I have multiples of Jim Lee. So just send the offers. It's better to just send an offer. We can kind of like go back and forth. I find that really to be a fun part of the hobby, actually, especially if it's somebody whom I've conducted trades with before. Like if I see something on their Instagram, I'll shoot them an offer. Sometimes they accept, sometimes they don't, or sometimes we get a conversation going and we go back and forth on what we want, what we're looking for, what we think the value is, and that's always fun. So again, feel free, take a look at these books that I introduce, and feel free to shoot me an offer. Now, some of this is like confirmed spec, right? We know things are coming. We know they're coming, and some of it is my theories of what's coming, or what I guess would like to see come. They're my own opinions, so definitely don't take everything I say with a grain of salt. Okay, just if I tell you like, hey, this is a book I think it's gonna come to the big screen or whatever. Just it's my opinion. It's not like I have insider Hollywood knowledge or anything. It's more kind of like um, wishful thinking on my part, because it's what I would like to see. But you can agree or disagree on those opinions, and I'll let you know which ones um, those are. So I've divided into Marvel and DC spec. So there's a lot of things that sort of planned in Marvel that's been announced, and so we're kind of just waiting to see um, what new characters will be introduced, what storylines, how it's going to all meld. I know right now Ant-Man, the Conqueror storyline that kind of bombed, I guess, at the box office. So we don't necessarily know if we'll see Kang. And to be honest, I wasn't specking on Kang, so it doesn't really affect me. But I know maybe some of you went out there and maybe specced on Kang a bit. And the big baddie I'm specking on, we'll get to, but um, those kinds of things always affect the value. All right, so what's up, Norin? I'm just going to address some people in the chat. K-pop. if you got Image, you get so I've got Marvel, I've got DC, and Norin knows where I'm going with my spec. Um, we got some Image books in here too, so don't worry. All right, so the first book, and this was again, I picked this up for I think either 25 cents or I picked it up free. But I did realize it was a key, and this came. I got picked this up. I think like a week before Avatar was coming out, so I knew this was going to be. It was already a key book because of the first Avatar movie. The question was whether the second Avatar, which came out like almost a decade later, right? It came out. It quite literally came out a decade later, right? So there was this sort of disconnect from because normally sequels you see them like in 2 years, a year, 2 year, right? But a decade, that's like an entire generation. Just like you kind of like you could have been born and grown up and gotten into comic books and not even known that something called Avatar had come out. But yeah, so there was a lot of sort of variables around the sequel. Again, I just got it because this was so cheap. I got it for a quarter. If I got it, picked it up free, I think. But it is the first appearance of all the Avatar characters, right? It's this free comic book. Key book. I think it went up a little bit in value this year, but of course, they're going to wrap up the trilogy with a third installment. So I'd imagine there's going to be continue to be a hot book, continue to be a book that's sought after. I don't see too much of this out in the community, which is, I guess, speaks to maybe its rarity. But again, nice clean copy I have here, high grade. If you want to trade for it, if you like this kind of stuff, hit me up with an offer. Okay. All right. Now I got to give a shout out to. I got to give a shout out to a community member, and I'm blanking on his name right now. Otto. I got to give a shout out to Otto because he put this on my radar, and he basically so he does these like weekly comic book previews, like what he's picking up or what he finds interesting, and he has a really great. No, I mean he's reading and keeping up with all these like storylines and even if they're not interesting, he's kind of keeping up with it and just giving you his opinion on whether he thinks it's something worth picking up or not. Now, but to be honest, I don't pick up new books. Um, it's something I did when I was getting into collecting back in the day, but it's not something I do now. I'm more I'm at a point in my life where I'm just more of the nostalgic collector, and um, I have my little niche of collecting that I like to focus on. But it's more focused on back issues, and a lot of the newer stuff I pick up is with the intent of kind of moving it and transitioning it to get better books, right? So, but he put the Fall of X on my radar, and this is a new sort of multi, I guess, Marvel crossover type event, and he basically saying there's this, um, the House of X that came out. It's kind of progressed. The mutants are on the island; they're doing good, and then they deal with their first big setback, and there's this an image where all the mutants are dead, and really great kind of setup for again this multi-title sort of crossover event. Spider-Man's in it, Iron Man's in it, the mutant titles are in it, so it's a big comic book event, and yeah, luckily I have like House of X, I have Powers of X, I have some of these like key issues from this initial universe creating event, what starts it off. So I think it looks, from all indications, the writing looks really on point. It looks like it's a really well coordinated um, comic book crossover event. And anytime you have that, you're gonna see a lot of people uh, wanting to keep up with that and buying all the titles. And so I don't know if it's necessarily going to drive up values of Fall of X, but I'm sure that popularity of Fall of X is going to drive up the value of books like this, which sort of kind of it's the starting point of what that is. So House of X, again, this is a minty, clean, fresh 9.8 candidate copy that I picked up for half a cover. It's available if you for sale or trade again. Um, and generally, like I'm looking for book value on a lot of these books, um, plus shipping. So if you're curious about what I'm charging in terms of like selling, I'm looking at like whatever book value is. And I guess I could, we can do some like best offer type situations, but that's the base point, right? Like a book value. If it's not um, in a high grade, then of course I will take the grade into account in terms of its book value. So when I say book value, I mean what it's booking for in the grade or condition that it's in. Um, so this isn't really a spec book. It's just like the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think if you were to rank what I'm looking forward to, I'm definitely looking forward to the James Gunn third installment of the Guardians. Is it third installment or fourth installment? He's done some like Christmas movies and stuff like that, so I'm not sure. But anyway, it's the final installment, and Gunn has gone on record to say this final movie is really about Rocket Raccoon. It's like it's the whole series has always been about centered around Rocket, and this is sort of um, the finale is what brings that to bear, right? So the story is coalescing toward his origin story and what makes him sort of the glue, I guess, of this group. And I gotta give a shout out to Metarog or Roger, who pressed this book for me and made it look really a lot better than what it used to look like. This is low grade. I'm not going to ask more than $20 for this book. So in terms of trade value, around $20. If you want to buy it, $20. I would put it at like a 2.5 because there's some chipping. There's a tear here. But other than that, it's not all that bad. It's presents pretty well. There's you can make out the cover basically. I mean, I've got books where you can't make out the cover. We'll get to some of those, but um, the first, I don't know if this is the first appearance, but it's the first cover appearance of Rocket the Raccoon. It's just an iconic book, and yeah, it's with the Guardians of the Galaxy movie coming out, this is a hot book. It's appearing on the trending lists, and again, if you want it, send me an offer. Um, okay, so I mentioned Guardians is at the top of my list in terms of movies that I'm excited about seeing. Um, but I think I don't know. Let me know what your opinions are. But this trailer just dropped, I think, yesterday, It came out after, so we it's not the first trailer, but it's the new trailer, and we've had sort of an inkling of what might come in the Miles Morales animated sequel. Because we've had indications, okay, Spider-Man 2099 is going to be there. We had indications that there's going to be, you know, more Spider-Verse characters, like different types of spider people, and we got our best sort of trailer yet with the story and what the backdrop of this movie is going to be. And man, I think it's the most anticipated thing out of everything that's been announced and so far. I don't want to say it's the most, but in terms of what's coming out this year, it's definitely, I think, the thing I'm most excited about. And that is, again, the sequel to the Spider Verse. And there was a scene in that trailer. Peter Parker shows up with his baby, and they're calling her Mayday. And, she's this like Disney animated cute character. So, and it's really interesting because, like, just days before, like, it was literally last week, I think, where my last haul, I ran into this book. I kind of looked it up and saw that it was a first appearance. Now, I run into a lot of books where it's a key. It's a key for a reason, like a first appearance or like whatever. And they're not always like sure. You just kind of like you have to weigh: is this something that will have value later, or something I'm interested in, or is like a character I care about? And this one, I've got to say, when I saw it, I saw this when I ran into this book. First of all, it's a great cover. It's when I was collecting and the marriage of Peter and Mary Jane. I forget what issue it is, but it's the wedding cover, right? With them. There's different versions of it, but there's the original is Peter in a tuxedo with Mary Jane in her wedding dress with the backdrop of the wedding party, and that's an iconic cover, and it's definitely one I've been meaning to add. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's not that it's like a terribly expensive book. It's just one of those iconic books. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is great. This is kind of like an homage to that, except it's Peter and Mary Jane as parents and a nice shot of their family. And again, Anna May Parker it's the first appearance of their daughter, Anna May Parker. Now, apparently, Anna May is got powers like Peter. She's a spider person, and they've introduced her character as like one of the next gen characters, right? So it'll be interesting to see how the success of her appearance in the Spider-Verse sequel will play out in terms of this book. I think this is it's a hot book, right? I mean, if you watch the trailer, you're probably wanting this book. And again, the groundwork's been laid. So it's a character that if audiences love her, all the kids are going to go see it, and they're going to be like, anime, like they're going to see it. They're going to have that character in their memory banks, and it's going to move this character again, maybe to the forefront of developing more stories around her. But it's a definitely exciting prospect. So I just feel very lucky to have picked that up when I did, and now have it. So I'm just going to kind of wait on um, that book to climb in value. So I don't know if I would necessarily want to sell that book right now. This one is probably not available for sale or trade. Um, yeah, I'm going to hang on to this one for sure, since I think I see a lot of future value to it. I also picked up these Spider-Verse keys. This is, again, the first appearance of this robot who's controlled by the Japanese Spider-Man. And this is just a great cover here. The cover artist is Olivier Coipel. If one of you knows the correct pronunciation of, I'm murdering the guy's name. Olivier Coipel. I'm assuming it's French. Great covers by this guy. Just look at that. That's just an amazing cover there. So, yeah, nice little pickups there, I think. Now, this is the first appearance of the Miles from the 616, and apparently that's an evil Miles, but this is the first appearance. This is the Pepe Larraz variant. And it's a wraparound. Miles is kind of like, it looks to be some kind of symbiote variant cover. I think it's a cool wraparound cover. But this is, again, high grade, available for sale or trade. Don't see this book all too often, so I'm assuming it's also a ratio variant of some kind. So that's cool. This next one, I actually have 2 copies that I picked up for, again, $1.50, because it's half a cover, $1.50 each. One's like an 8.5, one's closer probably to a 9.0. They're both high grade copies of Astonishing X-Men 9, and apparently there's rumors this character, who is the embodiment, like the AI embodiment of the Danger Room, it's the first appearance of her. She's a villain, and she's also the villain in the new upcoming Deadpool movie. That hasn't been confirmed, but that's the rumor. So this shot this book up in value. And so, yeah, those are both available. This one is not available. The more and more I have this book in my collection, I initially wanted to sell it. I did want to sell it. But then the more and more I think about what this book is, and the artwork, and again, the significance, I want to actually hang on to it. So that's King Size Hulk #1. It's again, it's the first issue. It's the second appearance of Red Hulk, both second cover appearance and second appearance of Red Hulk. It's the first appearance of Red Hulk versus She-Hulk. I don't know if that's a thing or will continue to be a thing, but it's the first battle meeting between the two. And it's also a reprint of Hulk's 181 and 180. So king size issue. There's a lot going on internally as well. This is a great Frank Cho variant cover here of them battling. And you know how Frank Cho is, man. You know how Frank Cho is, right? So, yeah. Again, there's rumors Red Hulk is coming. I think it's all but confirmed now due to the casting, and I think there have been some leaks about, um, you know, some production leaks about the Hulk, Red Hulk design and whatnot. So that's coming. So again, that's a book I think with a lot of collector value, because I know when collectors go out and look for Red Hulk issues, they're obviously going to look for the first first cover appearance of Red Hulk. Um, but I think this one is also up there in terms of what people want. Now, this next book is one of my worst condition books, so I'm not really seeking a lot for this. I don't even know if people will want it, to be honest. Um, but it is a key book, and it's a key book of a character that I uh, again, a character that was kind of evolved and was central during when I was collecting, and that is Ben Riley, the Spider clone. So this is the first appearance of Ben Riley, and as you can see, it's a really shoddy cover. There's fading all throughout here. I don't know what caused it. It looks like somebody, I don't know, like to be honest, it looks like somebody um, just poured some kind of chemical that eroded the color. Um, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but it's just faded in like this area here and this area. Like that the bottom section actually doesn't look so bad, but it's just that fading. And again, there's like, spine ticks, creases all throughout the book. Um, it's definitely like a low grade copy for sure. I'd probably put this at a um, less than a 1.0, given all the issues that are there. They're like major issues, right? You can't make out half of the cover. So again, really ultra low grade. Um, but it is key. The interior is intact. The staples are intact. All that's wrong with it is this like fading, and again, just the wear. So for me, like it may be just something I keep in my collection. It's a key book, and we haven't really seen Ben Riley in anything. But if they're bringing Spider-Man 2099 as a major, I think we did see the Scarlet Spider in the trailer as well. So we know he's in the trailer. He's one of these like he's one of the select group of Spider people that are on this elite team led by Spider-Man 2099. So we know he's there. And again, he was such a central character in the 90s. There was this like Peter Parker was in jail. Um, he was kind of out of commission, and it was Ben Riley kind of just, he knows he's a clone. He's trying to figure out how he fits into this whole uh, reality, whether he's a superhero. There's that internal struggle, but trying to find like his own identity and path to crime fighting, and but at the same time knowing there's this exact genetic copy of him, like who's Spider-Man. Hey, Damien, what's up? Isn't it? It is unusual. It's like they poured like gasoline or I don't know what would cause a cover to like degrade like that. It's not an eraser, but it almost feels like an eraser because it just there's like streaking like somebody rubbed against it. I don't know. The things people do to comic books, man. We should start a campaign. Save, preserve the comic books, man. Don't, if you have a comic book, take care of it. Don't just treat it like whatever. Um, all right, so continuing on again, I think Ben Riley is going to be a big character. I hope he's a big character because again, that the way they approach that the cloning and I think in the '90s it was rather novel. I don't know about now. Now you cloning clone characters and it's kind of cliche now, right? I'm a clone. Am I a real person? Kind of going through all the like the Blade Runner AI kind of identity issues, or robots coming to grips with the fact that they're robots. Um, uh, if they're sentient, they're questioning uh, their existence. Um, could it be sun bleaching? I don't think sun bleaching would be so focused. I don't know. It's weird. Um, no, it doesn't look like it's not like tape pull or anything like that. Again, it's just this like weird fading. I'll give you a close up here because it seems to be generating a lot of interest. See, so you can make out the character there. It's just like faded to a point where it's like I have no clue what would have caused something like that. It is not. It's not like a water stain. So it's not like this. Although if you look up here, it looks like it's been. Again, I think it's like some kind of chemical that caused this to degrade because it has that feel like it's just like you know like the physics of how it's moved across the page. It's just feel like maybe something poured over it and he just wiped it and then it just streaked away the color and the ink. So it wasn't like water per se. It was like some kind of oil based chemical. Um, I don't know, something along those lines. All right, we're wrapping up the Marvel spec stuff, and of course, this is more long term spec. Nothing's been confirmed. This is in the area of like theories, but I think if you kind of you know if you followed comic books for a long time, um, there are really only a few avenues that this the Secret War spec can take. So, you know, for me, when I heard them announce Secret Wars is coming, that's probably the thing I'm looking. I mean, I'm looking forward to Superman. By all means, don't get me wrong. Superman's my favorite character, and it's the movie that I'm most looking forward to. But having said that, it's also the movie that I have the highest expectations for. It's also the movie that I think will have the most opportunity to be disappointed for as well. So, it's kind of like one of those things like you want it to be good, you want it to entertain you, and you want it to just, you know, basically press all those buttons that make you love Superman, right? You want it to meet all those expectations, but um, given DC's track record and some of the what I've what I'm gleaning from the conversations around the development of this movie, it just feels like they're taking Superman in a maybe a whole new other direction, and I'm not I'm not necessarily on that ship. I think again they should just stick to the formula that works. Just make it just wrap that in a new package for the new audiences. Don't change the essence of the character. If anything, reinforce to audiences why Superman is number one, right? Just really drive home get back to the basics and foundation of the character. Really reinforce that. I don't think you have to necessarily reintroduce him as something new to a new audience group of people. But again, the Superman's again. I'm looking forward to that, but I'm also like kind of anticipating it to be bad, and that's I'm hoping it isn't, but I'm already seeing it as something I won't like. So now, Secret Wars, on the other hand, this is something that, as I was getting into comic books, it's one of the first things I read. It's one of the first things I bought off the comic book stands. And to this day, it's just it remains one of the top, comic book series or just stories that have come out. And of course, there's been subsequent, like Secret Wars 2, there's been some modern takes on Secret Wars. And they're all, pretty intriguing. They're all their own individual sort of takes on Secret Wars. I'm actually really impressed with the, who was it? I think it was, I have to look. Hang on. It was Jonathan Hickman. It was Hickman's take on Secret Wars. I'm actually impressed with the Hickman uh, version of Secret Wars. I think it's very intriguing. Um, so anyway, we are there's hasn't been any kind of confirmation, but all indications are the big baddie in the Secret Wars, whether they go modern or they go old school, it's going to be Doctor Doom. And I think most comic book community members and collectors realize this. So there's been a lot of Doom focused collecting. I know people are just picking up Doom covers, they're picking up Doom keys, and Doom's just been gaining this sort of momentum as, sort of the villain, the main villain in the Marvel universe, the number one guy. He's kind of like the Joker of Marvel, right? So that's cool to see, and this book was definitely a pickup in response to that. Books of Doom. This is really sort of the modern origin on um, Doctor Doom. So it's a key book. This one I picked up as well, just like it's kind of a lead up to Secret Wars. Doom's on the cover there again. Gabriel the Auto Doom cover there, pretty cool. And I've just picked up more Secret Wars books because I think it's just we're gonna see some kind of version of this, right? So I picked these up rather economically. In fact, I got I think all of these for 50 cents or less. I might have picked this one up for free. I picked up most of these for 50 cents at Mill Geek, so I really lucked out. Um, and I was again, I picked them up right as they announced the Secret Wars, which was like I think early last summer, sometime around last summer, right when they announced that it would be the pinnacle of Phase 6. So yeah, looking forward to that. Again, not that it's speculation at this point. I think Doom is a good bet that is going to be the best, especially with the the failure of Kang. We probably won't see Kang. Kang's not going to be the guy at the helm of Secret Wars. It's definitely going to be Doctor Doom. So the question was whether it would be Doom, like Beyonder and Doom, or and I think we could see that, or whether it just be sort of the Hickman version of Doom. I think the Hickman version of Doom is more plausible and probable, um, because Hickman's version is more geared toward the modern day, screenplay adaptation, right? As opposed to like, I'm sure you'll see elements of what made the original Secret Wars cool, just having these big battles between like villains and superheroes, right? You'll have some form of that, but I think Hickman's story is going to be the one that's adapted and what we're going to see on the big screen. So again, uh, take that's part of that is theory. So take that with a grain of salt. Like I said at the beginning of this video, a lot of the stuff I'm going to say here is just theory. Some of it is confirmed, but you know, it is what it is. These are the opinions of a collector. Now we're going to get into some really cool stuff, and I think this is the DC spec. Okay, we're going to get into the DC spec now, and what's up, guys? Got K-pop in the house. We got Bronze Age nerd in the house. Got a Portland buddy, Damien, who I'm gonna probably hang out with this summer. Hopefully. Hey, 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 hey. Yep. So, we're getting my DC kind of spec books now, and again, I shouldn't really call these spec books because if I'd really been specking on them, I probably would have gone after like, first, like, key first appearances and all that. So it's kind of like, as I explained at the start of the video, Saturday Summer Con. All right, well, yeah, if you're going to be there, I'll definitely consider going, because I think that was my concern. Like, I know, Damien, you're planning to come up for Summer Con as well, right? With Bueller. So if all you guys are going to be there, I don't know what days you guys are planning to come up, but yeah, I think Saturday and Sunday are the two prime days. So we'll we'll figure something out. I'll probably reach out to all of you guys individually and see what the best day might be. But yeah, if people are going to be up there and people are going to be hanging out, I definitely would want to join. But if it's just like, you know, uh, if no one's going to be up there and it's just me going down to Puyallup to, meet all these artists and be picking up books, that wouldn't be as fun. But definitely, if you guys are going to be down there, I'm down. So uh, we'll coordinate for sure. All right. Um, yeah. So the Blue Beetle trailer dropped, and I really liked it. Now I wouldn't put Blue Beetle above like Guardians of the Galaxy or above the Spider Verse sequel. Those probably are the two top movies this summer that I'm more looking forward to. But Blue Beetle looks really entertaining. It looks like it's gonna be among the sort of like, you know, uh, big box office draws this summer. It's a great popcorn flick. Um, it looks like, again, the costume design sort of the cast. You know, George Lopez is in it. It looks to be have that humorous element, which is really key to these comic book movies, right? It's got to be funny. Um, Definitely, the special effects in the movie are really spectacular. So I think visually, you're gonna see, um, you're gonna get your money's worth. So having said all that, this kind of relates to um, Blue Beetle, Spec, which I'm gonna just, I guess I'll just start with that. Um, this is a PC book because it's just part of the Jim Lee collection, so it's not available for sale or trade. But again, I think I didn't necessarily get this because it was like spec book. It was just I've got, I'm trying to finish off this run. I've got 3 copies of this one here. Like, I've got 3 copies of it. So it's great. I think the introduction of this character, Jaime Reyes, is great. But I don't think it's going to stop there. I think it we're going to see some kind of. I've been saying this, like, if James Gunn's vision is to really, because I think right at this point, right, DC's waving the white flag and saying we're just going to structure our movie strategies, right, our production strategy around what Marvel's doing, which is taking a slower, more focused approach to developing different storylines, analyzing what's working and analyzing what's not, and then moving up another level with what's working and building there, and then building up another level until you get to uh, sort of a crossover type event where they're all meeting at 8. So that's the Marvel formula, and DC is now, they've been trying to do it, they haven't done it, but now James Gunn's coming in and making sure it gets done. Right? He's making sure it's properly executed. And what brings me, because I want to see this happen at I love DC. Um, Superman. Superman's my guy. DC's really um, kind of where my heart is in terms of the stories and the characters, right? Because it's what I grew up with as a kid, irregardless of what the comic books, whether I collected, because I actually collected Marvel. When I got into comic book collecting, it was Marvel, but I'm talking about Saturday morning cartoons. I'm talking about Superman the movie. I'm talking about Batman, um, the 1989 Keaton Batman. I'm talking about Frank Miller. So when I did get in comic books, of course I was reading Batman. Of course I was reading Superman. Of course I was reading all the things. But the foundation of what I was watching as a kid was already there with the DC stuff. So anyway, I think that pinnacle act, in Marvel, it was the Infinity Wars, right? That was the big key moment. What was the other one? There was another one that preceded Infinity Wars. Maybe it was Civil War, but it was maybe one that preceded that as well. But you had these moments where like everybody comes together, fights the big baddie, and then goes back to their home bases or their own franchises. And I think that for DC has to be just like they brought Secret Wars, right? In this current environment, that crossover event, that unifying event, has to be a crisis event. It has to be either infinite crisis possibility, or Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I would lean more towards. Um, I would lean more towards Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be something that's completely new, but that builds off this premise of, you know, time continuum kind of disruption. And so, yeah, right now there's a lot of, we just don't know where it's going to go, because we just don't know uh, what's going to have traction with audiences. And I think Blue Beetle has, just based off what I've seen vision. Now, I thought Black Adam would do well. It didn't. I honestly thought Shazam would do really well. Apparently it didn't. I haven't seen Shazam, but I saw the first Shazam. I thought if they just make the second Shazam anything like the first Shazam, it should be good, right? And look, in all indications, that that was the case. But um, so I don't know. Maybe Shazam's out. Black Adam definitely seems to be out of favor. But who knows? Maybe they'll pop up again after Guns establish some kind of foundation, right? Um, having said all that, we are going to get into what I'm specking on, and I've been picking up just because first of all, I like um, this Giffen de Mateus run, and I love the Maguire art. And I went to Emerald City Comic Con to meet Mr. Maguire, and had a great conversation with him, and he was great. So I had this signed copy of Justice League #1, signed by Kevin Maguire, and I went to Comic Con with the intention, because he was going to be there, with the intention of getting more books signed. So I got this one signed. You can tell I'm specking on this. It's not even spec. It's like I kind of had it put on my radar, and then I realized, you know what? This is a great run to be collecting, for the art, for the story, just everything. And it's so, it's kind of, it really is where the trend of modern books, it set the stage for where we are with modern books, I think, in terms of the humor, sort of the more like sort of conversation, I guess you'd say screenplay adapted take to comic books. You really saw that with this series. So anyway, again, got that signed by both McGuire and Joe Rubenstein. Picked up some Lobo as well, because I think there's rumors he's coming as well. I know his first appearance is shooting up. Got this one also signed. Great. That's a beautiful McGuire cover right there, Lobo. Right? Beautiful cover there. And again, just picking up keys like this, Blue Beetle. They're nice Blue Beetle covers. I really hope Blue Beetle becomes more of like a character that people care about, because he's I know he's front and center in this run, but in terms of his overall presence in DC, he's always just kind of been one of those background characters. So hopefully, um, this summer we'll see Blue Beetle become part of pop culture, like a more permanent presence in pop culture. All right. Um, Now, Nightwing. Uh, we got to talk about Nightwing. Nightwing is probably one of the more um, prominent DC characters at the moment, right? We're talking about currently in comic books. And even historically, Dick Grayson has just been the Robin, has been, and his transition to Nightwing. Um, so he's always been sort of this like key figure in the DC universe. And we're now, I mean, pretty much we know like Damian Wayne is coming, right? Bruce Wayne's son. Um, and I think all indications are Nightwing's coming, right? And so for me, like, not that this was a spec book, I'm trying to pick up uh, the new Teen Titans. It's one of the few titles I'm collecting where I'm want to finish the run. I don't have too many of those, but definitely the Wolfman George Perez run is something I want to collect more of. As is the Giffen, DeMatteis, and McGuire run on Justice League America. I think it's the first. I want to say it's the first, sporadically the first 30 to 40 issues, right, of that run. There's that run of X-Men. I'm trying to collect like 200 to 300 is sort of the goal. Um, Spider-Man. I've given up on Spider-Man. I'll just pick up the issues of Spider-Man that I like, which a lot of them are sort of like early bronze, late silver. Um, the John Romita Senior run on Spider-Man. I'm definitely wanting to pick those up. Those are rather still affordable, so it's something I think I could do. It's just that's those books are still pricey, and you just got to be very focused. I do have a few of them now in my collection, but we'll see where that goes. All right, so yeah, I think it's safe to spec on Dick Grayson stuff. This is the second appearance of Grayson, by the way. I believe it's also the second appearance and second cover appearance. So that's a cool little tidbit. All right, so the real DC spec, and this is all theoretical spec because nothing's been confirmed. All we have really confirmed is we know the Authority is coming, and all indications are if the Authority is coming, we know the Midnighter is coming. And so from that basis point, all this other stuff is really conjecture, but I think it's I think I'm going to explain why I think the way I think. So James Gunn, DC has this huge dilemma on their hands. They're competing with Marvel in the same spaces, right? They're competing with them in terms of comic book industry. They're competing with them in terms of presence in the toy and comic convention and sort of like, licensing pop culture industry. And a good example of this is, and they're losing. Let's be frank, they're losing to Marvel in all in all of those areas. And really, the pinnacle of this sort of pop culture, I guess, arena or medium is the film industry. Okay, so that's the apex. If we're looking at a pyramid, comic books are the foundation, but really the apex of this structure is the film industry, because that trickles down and affects every other aspect of your business. Now, DC used to be Warner Brothers. Okay, we're talking about Warner Brothers. Used to be the leader of comic book related content, like superhero, right? We're talking about Christopher Reeve Superman. We're talking about Michael Keaton and Tim Burton and the subsequent Batmans that followed. You had, 21st Century Fox come out with X-Men in 2001. That was really sort of the first big commercial hit for Marvel. It was big. It was a big hit because that produced three really successful X-Men movies, and it set the stage for Iron Man, which was another big hit. So I think Iron Man was sort of the Keaton Batman, um, of a new generation. Keaton's Batman was the big sort of cinematic event of people my age, right? But for the younger kids, at the turn of the millennium, you had Iron Man, which was um, really an entertaining piece of work. And that bridged, again, really uh, very smart planning on Marvel's part, um, to really have a vision for how they were going to integrate Marvel characters. I mean, Disney buys up Marvel, and it really, I think, you had just more a thoughtful approach. And DC, to be honest, was just playing catch up. Um, they've been playing catch up probably since the X-Men, right? Or no, probably since Iron Man, right? They've kind of been playing catch up. They've had these sort of standalone successes, again, with like Superman, Batman, just sort of standalone type things, but nothing integrated, not to the point where, not to the extent of Marvel. All right, good night, Rothhaus. Um, but anyway, they bring in James Gunn. Okay, James Gunn is the Kevin Feige of the DC universe, and he has a lot of pressure right now to fix this mess at DC, because they had this huge event. I don't know if you remember, like this was maybe 2 years ago, or it was about, I want to say it was like two winters ago, where DC has this huge, sort of online release of everything that's coming. Like they announced Black Adam, they announced like the Batman movie, they announced a bunch of things, and it really had people like excited. Oh, maybe this is the turning point. And no, it wasn't the turning point. If anything, uh, it just made the sinking ship sink faster, right? And I really feel for Jim Lee, because Jim Lee, sort of as the creative uh, guy at DC, he's sort of responsible for now. I think DC's been doing a great job on the page, in the comic book industry. DC's been doing a fairly great job, right? Um, they're putting out books, they're putting out content, they're integrating things. I think they're doing a great job. Again, setting that foundation that's there. The issue is again at the studio level. They just don't seem to. I think it's a part of it is a patient having a patience to have these things fail or succeed, and then um, you obviously want everything to succeed, but that's not going to be the case. But being more strategic about that, right? So I think that's what James Gunn brings. He brings a better idea of how to make it work, and it's not going to be all through movies. Because DC has this great library of TV shows and animated features that they're not effectively utilizing. The animated features actually are just like rehashing what comes out in the comic books, right? You have like this great comic book story. They just haven't adapted to the animated thing, which does make sense. Um, I guess it makes sense on a certain level, but you're just it's kind of like what the animation industry does, or I should say the Japanese animation industry does. They take manga, they create a TV series based off the manga, and then they finish it off with a movie. So if they're going to go that route, then go that route. Don't just adapt something from comic books to the small screen and then let it end there, right? And that's kind of what they're doing. It doesn't make a lot of sense, especially if you've read the manga or the comic books. It's like you want more. You want to see something like a spectacle. Um, and you just can't do that. Like you can do it in manga because of the format, but you can't do that in comic books. So um, anyway, so James Gunn has a lot of pressure, and the key thing here is he's working closely with DC Comics. He's working closely with Jim Lee because I think in the past the studios they didn't consult Jim Lee. They didn't say, "Hey Jim, what are you doing here in comic books that we can really adapt?" They never probably asked those questions, right? They just had their own guys like or writers like look at the comic books as a reference point, but they didn't strategically like say, "Hey, what are you working on now? And how can we bring that to the screen?" It was never that kind of conversation. If anything, if you look at, I'm just using the examples of Matt Reeves um, and Christopher Nolan, right? If you look at their approach to making their Batman movies, they literally just sat down and read a bunch of comic books, right? That was their approach. They just looked through the catalog of characters, stories. They looked through that and they said, "Hey, this resonates with me. I want to bring the form of this element into my movie." And they did it. And that had great success. Now, you could make that argument for Black Adam. They probably did that. They probably took that approach for Black Adam. They looked at the catalog. They said, "How can we make this relevant for today's audience?" Probably most directors probably take that approach, but that's not the best approach. It works for certain directors, but the directors have their own vision. If you're just taking that approach just to be taking that approach because it was what your predecessors did without any kind of you know without any kind of other driving force, whether it's your own personal motivation to see something on the screen or whether it's compelling story, which I think that's where the pitfall is. None of these things are compelling stories, right? Um, but it's the approach that they've taken. And what I love about James, he laid it out. It's all going to be focused on individual stories and then integrating those stories into a larger narrative. That's what DC's been trying to do to fail. I think Gunn, though, may have better success, and the differentiating factor will be he's consulting Jim Lee. Now, what does this consultation mean? We don't know the extent of what this consultation is, but I take the consultation to not just be a conversation. It's not a conversation. It's literally going to be like, look, what do you, as an executive, as a guy who's been in the industry, what do you want to see, right? How would you design this character? Because your comic books sell. You know how to sell a comic book, right? And I think this is the conversation that Gunn and Jim Lee have had, and all indications, the fact that when Gunn announced the Authority, a Wildstorm, right? A Wildstorm property was in this mix. I said, I said, game over. You have me, James. I'm on board, man. Whatever, I will support you 100%. Because I know you've had this conversation with Jim, and I know Jim has had this conversation within the company. We are going to bring Wildstorm. I'm going to bring my legacy to DC. We're going to smash it down your throat until people gag and choke and say, okay, I'm in. And I'm one of these characters. I'm one of the, I think, rare breed, right? I won't even say rare breed. Probably one of the few people who share Jim Lee's vision of what DC, the potential DC has. Okay. And if so, I'm there with Jim. Okay. I will support Jim. If Jim took over, I would support that move. If he could direct and do all that stuff, I would support that. But he's not. But I'm just saying, like, in Jim, I trust. And the fact that James is also in that camp, it sounds, I obviously it's in James we trust. Like, Jim is entrusting James. But I think there's a little bit of, like, in each other we trust. It's going to be a truly collaborative, like, ongoing conversation. It's not just something where they had a meeting and they're going to go about their own separate ways. No, it's going to be, they're going to run along parallel tracks. So what works in movies, you're going to see that adapted in comic books. What's working in comic books, you're going to see that adapted in movies, and so on. So that was a big long rant just to get to these, like, spec books. And we start here with a Wildstorm property here. All right, good night. Thanks for hanging out, man. Damien, I'm going to reach out to you separately about SummerCon. I know you're going. I think Bronze, right? Bronze Asian Nerd mentioned he's going to go on Saturday as well. So if all of you are going to be there Saturday, I think that's an easy decision on my part. But if you guys are going to go on separate days, I'll just have to see which days you're going, which days other people are going, and kind of make that call. But anyway, we'll talk offline and figure that out. All right, so Authority is coming. I could care less about Authority, to be honest. I never read Authority. I'm sure it's compelling. I'm sure it's a little grittier and darker. It's probably one of those like it's perfect. It sounds like it's like a perfect team for James Gunn, because I think they're going to make this a more adult, sort of violent, street level type team of, you know, cast of characters. And I don't mean street level, meaning like they have just street level powers. I mean more like a reality based superhero movie, because they all have superpowers, but it's just going to be kind of like, you know, it's not going to be like like Guardian. It's not going to be Guardians of the Galaxy. It's going to be more like Suicide Squad, something like that, right? Um, and I think that's where he wants to be with Authority. But I honestly look at Authority as uh, a jumping off point, meaning, you know, just what I mean here, right? Meaning, if we're introducing Wildstorm and that people love it, right? They're not introducing Wildcats. It's a big risk for DC. This is like potentially multi-billion-dollar uh, intellectual property, right? And they've been very careful how they're doing it, how they're integrating Wildstorm into DC. And I feel like they've done it to a certain extent, but they're being very cautious with that in the DC world. And they're hands off in terms of the cinematic universe. Because hell, Black Adam just failed. Okay, we're talking about a legacy character from the Golden Age that failed. Shazam didn't do particularly well, but at least they understand this is a character we can take a risk on. Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman, she's not getting another movie. Why? Green Lantern, Green Lantern's not. We haven't heard from him since, you know, Ryan Reynolds, right? So um, the fact that these IPs, these legacy characters, the risk of putting them out there, not having them succeed and fail, is like watching the stock, the value of your stock fall. No one wants to see the value, like something that should be worth a lot of money. No one wants to see that stock become worthless. So, Authority makes complete sense. Nothing to lose with the Authority, right? You put them out there, you see what you got, you tease, you tease some bigger stuff. Again, fails, no big problem. If it hits, all right, now you set the stage for the bigger stuff. And I'm specking on this. I think you should too. Now, again, grain of salt. Take this for what it is. This book will never be, and I've mentioned this many a time on my channel. This is not the first time I'm talking about Wildcats, but I will say it's going to be a big book, but it's going to be only like about $20, $30 book at most. Maybe it'll reach 50. Maybe at the end of the day, after all of this is said and done, maybe it'll reach heights of 50. At least the newsstand probably has potential to reach heights of 50. But this book, there's a lot of copies out there. So it'll never hit those heights. Now there are, you know, if you're looking at the Malibu Sun Wildcats, there's collector's value there. It's a lower print count. It's a little bit more rare. It's again niche. So if you're going to spec on Wildcats, I'd go the Malibu Sun route. In fact, I'm probably going to try to pick up a copy of Malibu Sun myself this year, meaning I'll pay for a copy. But anyway, Wildcats is Wildcats, but I think before we get to Wildcats, we're probably going to see Grifter. We're probably going to see Grifter. And I think if Wildcats has success, that's great. But I think where you'll see more success is with a character like Grifter. Um, and so I think when everything's said and done, assuming Wildcats is a success, um, what's going to transcend the Wildcats is you're going to have a member that, just like the X-Men, right? Just like the X-Men, you have this great team, but you're going to have a character that people care about more than the collective team, right? And for X-Men, it's definitely like a character like Wolverine. For would be another great example. I think, you know, for a team like, I don't know. Anyway, every team has their sort of favorite featured character that people care about more about than the others. And I think that's where you're going to see Wildcats, but you're going to see that extra franchise level character who can go out, branch out, and carry his own movies, carry his own line of books, carry his own merchandising. I think you're going to see that with Grifter. So I just laid some layers on you in terms of spec. I said Wildcats are coming, Grifter is coming, right? And in terms of where that popularity stacks up, it's going to be Wildcats, and I think ultimately a character like the Grifter is going to maintain a top spot. I also think if they're going the Wildstorm route, um, here's a great example of like what we'd see in terms of what the modern day Grifter would look like, right? Look at that character design. Jim Lee has this mapped out in his head. This is probably what he obsesses over when he's not drawing comic books. Like if he's thinking about his legacy, right, and he's thinking about what I'm doing with my time here at DC, I want to see what I created back when I was a young lad. I want to see that become among the conversation. So when you're talking about Superman and you're talking about Grifter, you're talking about them in the same sentence, like Superman and Grifter solved this mystery, or Batman and Grifter teamed up to defeat the Joker. That's, I think, where Jim Lee's head has been since he sold the company and joined DC. I think that's where his internal thoughts have been. Now that he's in a position to really make this happen, James Gunn's on board. It just sort of feels like the time is right for this to happen. And with that being said, now this is probably going to be the most wildly speculative thing I've. Hey, what's up, Compton? What's up, Ben? Straight out of Ben Compton. All right. This is gonna be the most wildly speculative thing that I've said on my channel, and I think I have said this on my channel before, but again, wildly speculative, but I think there's very huge potential for it. So that's the introduction of Gen 13. Now, Gen 13 is quirky. It's a quirky team. It's first of all, they're Gen Xers. That's the first that's the first problem. Okay. So back in the 90s, being a Gen Xer was cool. We were supposed to be the generation that that was going to solve all the world's problems. We didn't, and that we made them worse. And now we're about to become aging relics with, you know, uh, bowel movement issues and like eyesight issues and just physical pain and physical health problems, mental health problems, whatever. Us Gen Xers we're an aging and fading bunch of misfits, but I still think we're the best generation. Um, Now, Gen 13, they're Gen Xers. Grunge. How do you bring a guy like Grunge? Fairchild, right? Young, beautiful Gen Xer. She's probably old and beautiful now. Um, and, you know, some of the other characters, it was a very sort of in the moment kind of thoughtless team creation, really outlandish story, really kind of representative of all that early image stuff, right? Just sort of wild out there character stories didn't really make a lot of sense, but they're thrown into these like action sequences and like missions and like explosions and fight sequence. It was just a lot of chaos, especially um, especially Liefeld Lee's stuff. Like if you look at Spawn actually it was a really different, innovative thing that McFarlane was doing, but it kind of more subdued. I think in that if you just looking back, if you were to look at like, and I think what Silvestri doing to a certain extent was more subdued as well in terms of the superhero stuff. Like it wasn't as outlandish as some of the stuff Jim Lee and Rob were putting out there. But anyway, Gen 13 was an event. It was an event. It was sort of crazy, kooky characters, right? Tried a lot of humor, a lot of like innuendo. Um, you know, it was just again, quite a unique. It was kind of like MTV mashed up with the X-Men. That's the best way to describe it. Like 90s MTV fused with like these guys were obviously watching a lot of MTV and um, reading comic books, and they came up with Gen 13. Um, but guess what? Gen 13 is in today's comic books. Okay, same characters, maybe a little different, maybe a little more nuanced for today's audiences, um, but they're there. So I think if we're talking about speculation and layering, we've got Wildcats, good chance they'll be there. If Wildcats are there, good chance Grifters going to be there. And then on top of that, I think ultimately what we maybe they'll be put out there before Wildcats, who knows, as sort of this like test run. But I think ultimately, if we want to see the successful integration of everything Wildstorm, right? Um, Gen 13 would be sort of the last. I don't want to say last because there's Deathblow, there's other characters there, even the stuff following like Mr. Majestic, and there's a lot of stuff layered in and out that they can build in. So obviously, if you have some of these core pieces there, all of that is fair game. I don't foresee like DC, if it's working after Wildcats, they're just going to let it fly. They're going to introduce all of it, and I think that's the thing I'm most looking forward to. And that a lot of that is, again, speculation. Again, DC has more primary sort of priorities. I would say Wildstorm is a tertiary priority, but it's definitely there. And it's also an opportunity for DC to kind of flip the script, right? We're not going to do Justice League. We're not going to do Flash, Wonder Woman, Batman. We're going to flip the script and give you something completely new, but not new, right? Wildstorm's new to, no one knows Grifter. You go to any kind of like social event where there's like a good demographic of people, and you ask them who the Grifter is, 99.9% of those people will not know, which is unfortunate. But you go to any Comic Con, everybody knows who the Grifter is at the cons, right? Okay. And that's really what this is about. It's about bringing what people know in the cons, making it like us otakus, us nerds, us geeks, we are the first adapters for what you're seeing now in movies. We're the first adapters. We're the ones that filter all this. These are actually just test scripts for movies. Unfortunately, that's what it's become. But we're the first adapters of these test scripts, and we get to decide what. And you should take pride and great pride and responsibility in being that first adapter, and not let these pseudo wannabe first adapters who try to influence what people think on social media. Again, no knowledge of comic books, but they look at a trailer and they try to tell you it's good, it's bad. No, rip that mic away from those people, because they shouldn't be the ones who get to decide whether Black Adam fails or succeeds, right? I think if you talk to any comic book person, no one wants to see Black Adam fail. It did fail. The question is, did it fail because of the comic book community? No. In fact, most of the comic book community members I know thought it was good, thought it was like okay. It's the people who don't appreciate comic books that made that movie fail. So we can't let this continue to happen. At some point, we have to use our channels, we have to use our voices to, again, rip that mic away from the people influencing popular mass culture and say, no, this was actually good. You should go see it. This was good for these reasons. If you like comic book movies, if you like you know, this kind of stuff, understand why we as comic book people think this was a great movie. Like explain it, but don't let them dictate the success or failure of a movie. And that's, I think, um, that's what the crux of this issue is at DC. And I love that James Gunn is taking the right approach. When he was talking and doing all that announcement stuff, he wasn't talking to, I'm gonna create this imaginary character, and I'm just gonna call this person um, Patrick. Or no, let's call him Jeremy. Okay, let's call him Jeremy. Jeremy is a guy who drives around in his um, he drives around in his Porsche 911. Okay, he um, he loves reading books. He's a fairly intelligent guy. Let's say you know he's got a college education. Okay, and he's doing well for himself. He's a young guy, and he loves to go watch movies um, and do all the fun stuff. He's just sort of this wild and carefree guy, and he loves sports and he loves all these things, but he's not a nerd. He's a popular guy. Okay? He's had everything handed to him in his life. And that's Jeremy. And Jeremy, he likes movies, um, but he only likes, he's very like fickle in terms of, oh, that was good, that was bad. Okay. And he has his own reasons for it, but they're kind of learned. I don't know. I don't want even to say like learned. They're opinionated things based off his experience in life, his, what's important to him. So it's a very, uh, there's no, like rhyme or reason to why he likes something or why he doesn't. So Jeremy is basically the studio. If Jeremy watches the movie and he likes it, that's what all the studios care about. Okay. Because Jeremy, what he'll do is if he likes the movie, he'll go and watch all three movies. He'll maybe buy his future kids, license stuff from that movie. And just, like it's a commercial thing. There's just this commercial uh, brand value that Jeremy brings. If he's on board, we're talking about the demographic that they're targeting. If he's on board and he's bought into the brand, the his value to the brand is exponentially higher than somebody like me. Okay, and that is a very sort of real problem. And it's why I think us comic book people never get to see the movies we want to see made. Okay. Um, it's the reason DC has been failing, to be honest, um, because they've targeted Jeremy rather than people like me. Um, And so that's what makes me hopeful about James. James is not, when he made that social video post and he was speaking to all the plans and all the things that were coming out, he wasn't speaking to Jeremy. No, he was speaking to the comic book community. Okay. And I think that was really sort of a pivotal moment because that's something that had been established at Marvel, right? If you look at Marvel, where do they do these? Where do you think they do these sort of big movie announcements? Like Kevin Feige, he's not making the movie announcement through some kind of big flashy Super Bowl, Super Bowl ad or you know you know commercial time slot. He's literally announcing to the world at an event like San Diego Comic Con or at a New York Comic Con, right? Um, so Marvel's known that, and DC's only started doing that more recently. I know they've done con announcements in the past, but it hasn't been on the strategic, integrated, thoughtful level of Marvel. And I don't think necessarily DC has to do the same thing, have these like big Comic Con panels and events to announce stuff. But I think what reassured me with the gun sort of announcement of the DCU was that they're listening, that really what they're going to put out has to filter through us first adapters first, get our sort of seal of approval before it's even in. Because I'm telling you, we are, you know, if I like a movie, I think, if I like a movie for whatever reasons, most people are going to like that movie. And I consider myself like a good judge of what's good and bad. Um, and vice versa. I think there are things that are deemed bad that are good, in my opinion. Um, and so it's just framing the bad stuff. Again, I think if you took an approach where you filtered it through the comic book community out into the larger, mass market, it would be successful every time. Where you run into the problem is our community is so diverse. Our community is really almost a mirror reflection of the mass market to a degree. Um, so not everything will hit with us. You can't like generalize our the comic book community. You can't generalize that we're a certain way. Our interests, our likes are as about as different as, again, things in mass market audiences. But my point is like, um, I think there's a commonality in terms of our love for, especially like a character like Superman or a team like X-Men or a character like the Grifter. We all have sort of this sort of general consensus view on those things. They might diverge here and there, but I think for the most part, we understand, right? And so I'm glad they're thinking about us first for a change. And what I mean by they, I'm talking about DC. Okay, I'm glad DC is finally waking up. At least now the studio is waking up James Gunn understands you got to make these people happy first, and then that will trickle down. Okay. So for a long time, it's like, hey, let's sell Superman to people who don't care about Superman. Let's sell the Justice League to audiences who don't care about Justice League. And it'll be, we'll just add big stars to it. We'll add a lot of CGI. We'll add a great soundtrack, multi-million dollar modern day composer will throw him a bunch of money to create this outlandish grand soundtrack. It's just going to be this huge production. We're going to market the F out of it. We're going to, do Super Bowl spots. We're going to go on social media, spend a ton of load of, crap load of money so that everybody's eyes on it. And it comes out. People don't care. It fails. And then you have guys like, me saying, you should have done Black Adam this way. Right? You should have done Black Adam this way. I think The Rock would have made a great Black Adam, but they just didn't do it right. So, with all that said, thanks for watching. This was a long sort of rant, but it was something I just, again, when we talk about speculation, a lot of it is just sort of pent up anticipation about what we'd like to see. And last year just was very frustrating to see DC announce these slate of movies and projects, and they all systematically just failed, except for the Matt Reeves Batman, which I think Matt Reeves Batman was, again, targeted at Jeremy, and it was successful with the Jeremy audience, and I'm glad it was. But I looked at Matt Reeves Batman, and I just thought, yeah, they kind of just did, they just kind of took the mold of a Nolan Batman, put some other, psychopathic characters with this ulterior motive. It was just a very cliche story, just with new characters and new settings, but it was ultimately just the same thing. I'm surprised it was so successful, to be honest. No, I don't think it's a 9.6. It's the ASM 100 is. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you with that. It is not a 9.6. It is just in this. If I had 9.6 in this, that would have been incredible. But yeah, sorry for confusing you on that. Yeah, it's just in a top loader in front of my 9.6. Yeah, so again, thanks for watching, guys. This was a long rant on my speculation, what I'm personally just hunting for and stuff. So, I'm obviously speculating like all of you on the Marvel DC stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like a FOMO guy. I'm not out there just the first thing of movie news I hear, I'm going out and looking for that book. No. What I do is when I'm hunting, I will pick up things, I pick up things rather cheap. If it's cheap and there's some potential value there or a first appearance or something, I'll pick it up like anybody else. I'll pick it up, kind of keep it in my collection. Try to move it or trade it or sell it and do things to level up. But I kind of went over those books and I went over things that have been confirmed that I'm specking on. Also, some of the things that haven't been confirmed, sort of the long term spec that I think have potential. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, don't go out and buy things based off of what I said, but continue to buy what you like, continue to see value in things you connect with. Um, and that's all, and that for all of us, that's different. And that's what I love about this community. But I think at the end of the day, like I said, we as a comic book community have a responsibility to be the first, because we are the first adapters. Okay, we're the ones that get to read these new stories and form opinions on what is working and what isn't. So we shouldn't just use that voice for the publishers of these books, but really for larger mass culture, right? Larger popular culture, um, because we're the ones that ultimately can influence whether a movie succeeds or fails. And I think we've been kind of, I think a lot of us just kind of take this wait and see approach, like, I'll wait and to see it, and I'll just kind of see what other people say, what other people think about it before I throw my 2 cents in. No, go on, talk about the trailer, man. I think the Blue Beetle trailer was really compelling. Obviously, will it be a great movie? There's some signs there that maybe can point to that it won't be a great movie. But I think for the most part, the suit looks great. The pace of the movie looks good. Seems like there's a good deal of entertainment value and humor in it. So I see it as a very safe popcorn movie. Flash, I'm excited about the Flash. I think Michael Keaton's entry into it just adds a cool factor. I know they're bringing Cara Zor-El. Uh, they're bringing Supergirl back into it. I don't know if she doesn't look like Supergirl, but I'm fine with that. They More diversity in characters is fine. I don't think all the DC having all the DC characters just be white um, just is odd, and that's what it's been for decades, right? So you've got to kind of change the mindset there. If you can have a black Supergirl, you should have a black Supergirl. Like there shouldn't you shouldn't have a problem with that. Because I think we need more diversity in our superhero universe. It should reflect society. They don't have to be like all black. They don't have to be all Asian, but it should reflect our society, right? Um, and it shouldn't just be this hierarchy of like, okay, white people lead, and then the ethnic minorities just follow. No, you got to have these key characters reflect the diversity of this country. I have stuck to my budget, fanboy. Thanks for popping in, man. And you are killing it in fantasy, man. You've hit seven. Okay, so I'm just gonna shift gears for a bit. Uh, Fanboy and I are in a fantasy baseball league together. It's a comic book community fantasy league. Brian LCS is in it. Uh, Cole's comic collectibles is in it. Tylox is in it. But just a bunch of, not a bunch, just 8 of us community members that are in it. Free league. I'm having fun in it, and I'm beating Tylox right now in our first week 1 matchup. I'm winning 7-3. I want to see how. I think I'm pretty in a good position to win league week 1, but we'll see. But yeah, fanboy man, your team is a little bit like offensively, it's pretty scary, man. Like, you've hit 17 home runs. You got a crazy amount of like runs and RBIs, and batting average is high. I hope that that gets out of your system by the time we meet up, because I don't want to go up against your team if they're hitting like they did in week one. But it should be fun. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. And yeah, and I think people are kind of I think one of the fun things about our hobby is this new. I look at it as new because, again, when I was collecting, we didn't the most amount of spec we did was like, you'd see all these new titles come out, and then like Wizard or somebody would rank, what's selling. Like, this is the number one comic book of this week, and people would go out and buy that number one comic book. I'm glad to see the hobby's not. It's evolved from that, um, but it's evolved into this sort of weird, like, will it be a movie? Will the movie succeed? And the movie bombs, so the comic books prices are falling. It just, I don't I don't buy into that. Um, but I do buy into like stuff I like. And again, if I can pick it up for $1.50 and it's got spec potential associated with it, why the hell not, man? Why the hell not? Like, dude, I'll do that. And I'll get it signed. I'll pick up a book, purely speculative theory on my part, get it signed, and keep it in the PC until it becomes a reality. All right. Peace out, guys. Thanks for watching, hanging out, and we'll see you in the next one.